Welcome. I'm Matt from ferMentors. I also host the channel Jaggers Brewing Co. Thanks for stopping by, checking us out. Today is a special episode with one of my best friends, Ramon from Venture Brewing. So, what are we going to be talking about today, Ramon?
Well, today, and thank you so much for coming. We're very excited. We're finally outside without getting vaporized.
Yep.
Beautiful day. We even have a solar eclipse going on. I mean, this it's pretty
Been a good day.
it's pretty good day. So, October is a Hispanic Heritage Month. So, I don't think we kind of schedule it on purpose that way, but
No.
but it worked out. So it's one of the things that I think is meant to be.
Yeah.
So we are going to be talking about home brewing in Latin America, or what I know about it, or how I've been influenced about those traditions, and talk a little bit about their contributions to home brewing in general.
So, these beers that we have, and we've got a couple over here to taste. I'm sure there's a couple more styles than we have that will be represented today. But would you call these like historical or classical or experimental in nature? Where do you think that they would align on the BJCP style guidelines? I know some of them are kind of starting to head into that, but
Yeah. Well, I think with a lot of the things, it's a combination of factors, right? You have, for example, so when you think about beer in, or even if you go to ancient times on brewing, right?
sure.
Especially Latin America in the Andes area, or even in what we will call everything from Mexico to Central America, all the way down to the south. They've always been fermented beverage of some sort, right? So chicha, for example, chicha is a fermented uh, drink made out of corn, and it will qualify as a home brew. If you think about it, usually they will collect the corn and they will make a mash with the corn and let it ferment using the wild yeast from the environment of the corn itself, and then they will drink it. And so the thing's been going around for thousands of years. If we now come into, and also you have the influence from Spanish colonization. Wine making is being done forever in Mexico.
Yeah.
You have, pisco in Peru, in Chile, which is basically a distilled beverage from grapes, um, which is when the Spanish were trying to make their equivalent, which is called orujo in Spain. So this tradition has been going on for a long time. Now let's talk about beer. Um,
Well, while we talk about beer, what do you say we grab one of these things
let's talk about beer,
and
and
pour one and
so let's start with this is one, probably one of my favorites. So let's try this one. And
with
this is a good starting point,
with
because
the famous beer entry tool.
yeah. Uh, so what we're going to drink right now, and I brew this one, is called a Dorada Pampeana, and this we're gonna start in Argentina. Um,
I have been very excited to try this one.
yeah,
I've heard you talk about it on the podcast before,
yeah.
the Homebrew Pub.
So if you look at this beer, the word Dorada translates into golden. So you see the golden color, and it's an interesting brew because technically it could, or the original recipe could be called a smash beer, even though it has some color on it. And the reason is this is a 100% homebrew invention. Homebrewers in Argentina in the 90s, um, they started to try to make their own styles based on German traditions. So most of our influence on beer in Latin America came from German immigrants as early as, a few years at the end of the 19th century. Very similar to what we see in Central Texas. So obviously, Pilsners dominate, those type of beers, German style beers, darker beers, uh, all mostly lagers. So Argentina's homebrewers, um, they will have access to Pilsner in the 90s, but pretty much nothing else. There wouldn't be any specialized grains. And they learned how to make basically caramel malt with Pilsner by just, they take the Pilsner, you submerge it in water, saturate it with water, then you cook it on the oven. That's how you make Cristal fundamentally. So, they will make it from Pilsner. So this grist is mostly, it's like 95% Pilsner malt, and the rest will be Cristal 40, my version. And the yeast that they could find at the time was only Nottingham. It only has, and in terms of hops, they've been growing hops in the Patagonian region for a long time. That was mostly used to supply the commercial beer producers. So it was cheaper to home grow it. The Patagonia has really good uh, geographical and weather characteristics to grow hops. And the hop used for this brew is Cascade. Obviously, I don't have Patagonian Cascade here, so I have to use the Americans version. The American version has lower alpha acids. And of course, even on the flavors, even though it's still Cascade, um, is the terroir part, right? The sense of
Yeah.
the soil is different, the weather is
Yeah,
different.
the
So
core. Yeah, you're gonna get a little bit different
correct.
emphasis on a couple things, maybe a couple different flavor profiles.
And this recipe, the one that I use, and I'm going to plug my good friend Nico Cervecero, that you are the busiest home brewer in Texas, but this man is the busiest home brewer in Argentina.
So everything that we talk about today,
Yeah,
including Ramon's channel, will be linked in the description. So please go check out any of the resources that we talk about. We'll have some recipes. We'll have links
absolutely.
to channels and other people and stuff. So be sure to head out over there.
So this brew is now being recognized by the BJCP. Is in one of the temporary, or I don't know the word that they use. It's one of the X's. I think the latest version from BJCP have moved it into category 18 for blondes and American pales. But it's 100% Argentinian. So you have the Pilsner malt, you're going to have the caramel malt, and then you have the Cascade. One addition, it has very low bittering. It's about 20, 25 units. And I use S-04 is the modern way to do it. Nico, that's the way he does it nowadays. And let's taste it. Let's take a taste. So
So
it's a beautiful beer for
I,
the summertime. It matches a lot well with food, and
I took a couple sips while you were talking, so I've got some questions here.
yeah.
So first and foremost, this started off as a home brew
Mhm.
deal locally there, out of the need to have something to home brew in the
Correct.
area because there wasn't really anything there. You said there was there's some commercial brewing going on in
Commercial
the
brewing,
area.
so like mass-produced pilsners dominate the market like in everywhere else of
Sure.
the world, and but home brewers are always find a way to.
Yes.
So this is a testament to their creativity, and I think there's an anecdote that to get grain they would actually go to the commercial breweries and basically ask for grain, and they will
Yeah.
give them, a few pounds of grain, and they start developing these things. And there are several versions of the recipe. This is kind of the consolidated version.
Right.
So what you're tasting here is will be probably the Americanized version, since I cannot get national Pilsner, or I didn't make my own Cristal,
Right.
and I'm using American
And
Cascade.
that was another question I was going to
Yeah.
ask. Did you attempt to do your own crystal malting
No,
aspect of it?
I'm curious about the process, but I'm not. I'm curious about the process, but I decided to just use, whatever I have in hand. I usually have Cristal 40 in hand.
Sure.
By them doing their own Cristal, you also get different shades
Yes.
because depending when you decide to stop
The
the roasting.
temperature, the time, the
So,
the humidity of the grain
correct.
before it even went in. Yeah.
But I posted this in our Instagram, and Nico said it was the right color, so I'm feeling pretty, I'm feeling pretty confident that we nailed it.
It's a beautiful beer for sure.
And
You can definitely pick up on the crystal addition, right?
Yeah,
Um,
has some sweetness. And nowadays, a lot of craft breweries, the craft brewing in Argentina is really picking up and growing, and people are very enthusiastic. Home brewing in Argentina is huge. Um, very, very creative. Somos Cerveceros is a home brewing, basically club association, but it encompasses the whole country. And now you can find Dorada Pampeana commercially made by
sure.
some craft brewing. So it's a fully established endemic beer style. So they're very proud of it,
And
and
you,
I'm very proud to have the opportunity to brew it and showcase it to you today.
this is awesome. This is something that I think I've probably been waiting. I don't know, about 2 years now.
Yeah,
I think we've known each other about 2 years.
absolutely.
To taste. I think you had just ran out of it the first time I kind of came over and
Correct.
we met up and stuff, and then it took you a while to kind of get it back into your swing and
Into our
yeah,
schedule
yeah,
and our crazy experiments we've been doing the
sure.
year. Plus the summer was too crazy. We usually brew this for the summer. This is a perfect summer beer in my opinion. But you know,
And you said this is what, about 30 IBUs?
about 25,
25.
IBUs. It can be as low as 20.
Okay.
And but I think Nico uses 25, so I've tried to be as faithful as his recipe
Yeah,
as
I
possible.
don't think I would.
Yeah.
I and I'm not a hophead, but I think I could stand a little bit more hop profile to it, honestly.
Yeah, so you think about it, the from the BJCP perspective, this will qualify as a blonde, or it could be a pale ale style, even though it only has a bittering hop. It's only have one addition at 60 minutes. That's it.
Sure.
So you could go to 30 easily if you like a little bit more bitterness. There's a little bit of sweetness left,
Hmm.
especially when using an English ale such as S-04. You get that leftover sweetness.
But
So you can experiment. You
it's
can
not
experiment to get it to the point that you prefer it. So the style is very open.
it's not cloyingly sweet.
No.
So I think you definitely pick up on some of those Pilsner characteristics, a little bit of the
Hmm.
bread crusty notes, right? There is some of that residual sweetness that we talked about.
And it's very
Uh,
fun to play with. Like I've done it also using American to row, and it gives you a complete different flavor profile.
sure.
We have used Crystal a little bit lighter, 20, 30. We
You
have
love
used even
crystal
6.
malts.
I use Crystal Malt, especially in our pale ales. They're all gonna have a touch. Yeah, I know. I know some people hate Crystal Malt. That's a thing, but we still like it. We still use it.
Sure, sure. I think this is a wonderful beer. I'm completely happy that it took me 2 years to get one, but
We'll do
and
a better job.
I kept saying I'm gonna brew it, but then
I
I
have
get
your address. I
I
should I should send you some.
get distracted by sours or
Yeah, well,
whatever other shenanigans.
that's
But no,
fantastic.
thank you so much for sharing this.
So Argentina has also another style on the BJCP under consideration. It's called Argenta IPA.
Okay,
It's a very interesting. I haven't brewed it yet. I think that's one that it will be difficult to reproduce because you really need those Patagonian hops
I
to
can
make it
yeah.
work. And the characteristic that I like about the grist, the mash bill, it has wheat on it, up to 20% of wheat. So it's a
Okay,
Pilsner wheat um, um, mash bill, but it's also all these Patagonian hops additions. I think if you want to make an Argent IPA, you must use Patagonian hops. So I haven't attempted to do it. So I'm hoping that we can get access to those hops in some. I know
if
they're
someone
being
has
sold
the
on.
ability to get a cutting or 10 or 20,
Yeah, that would be great.
we would appreciate it. We would buy some. We would
That'd be great.
like share some beer or something.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out, right?
That will be awesome. And so check out Nico's channel because he makes his own equipment. He molds his own. He does his own malting. It is amazing how the creativity and the resourcefulness of, and they're really passionate about it. So I'm
Well,
hoping to go one day and visit him and brew with him. That will be great. But for now, we get to use his recipe, so yeah, that's pretty cool.
it's a pretty good recipe. I think I'm gonna try to
Mhm.
brew it and put my own spin on it for sure.
Thank you, man. That'd be great.
So why are these these brews, these beers, why are they so important to you? And I think I already
Yeah.
know the answer, and
Yeah.
we hadn't talked about a whole lot of these questions, but
Yeah, of course. I think part of the reason is this passion I have by home brewing. Like behind the camera, I have my friend there, Dan Havridge. He's the one who taught me how to brew. And like a lot of things, when I get into something, I go a little bit crazy. So I wanted to learn everything. So I was watching all the YouTube channels. I'm reading everything I can, and then I ran into this book. This is Randy Mosher's book, Mastering Homebrew. Might be a little bit outdated for some people, but I still think it has good information. And at the end of the book, he has a chapter on brewing around the world. And and then I see Argentina, I see Brazil. I'm from Venezuela, so I immediately got excited. Like I had no awareness. I didn't know about, I mean, those home brewing traditions, and the way he describes and how the creativity and how resourceful and all the things resonate with me a lot. So, especially living in the US, I said, oh man, this is an opportunity to learn from those traditions, attempting myself to brew those beers, and and connecting connecting also with those communities and those people that are contributing to home brewing. And
right.
I think that's very important to me. And it's giving me the opportunity to meet people like Nico, Evaristo, Antonio, who goes by Evaristo Cervejas in Brazil, Ricardo Rosa, that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, that you help us brew his very famous beer based on Brazilian nuts. Um, so I think that's very important to me, and I keep investigating. There's home brewing going on in Panama, in Venezuela, in Peru, in Chile, in
Just dig a little further,
Paraguay,
you find two, three more
and
things.
then in Colombia. In Colombia, there's a home brewer that goes by G. Res. I think I'm saying it correctly. We'll put it correctly. And he brews at the balcony of his apartment. It's so cool to to see that, and he makes fantastic beer. So it's Guatemala has a beautiful home brewing, and craft brewing is exploding in Costa Rica, in Guatemala, Mexico. Obviously, they
Sure.
will always have. I mean, we love Mexican lagers.
Yeah.
We understand how to make Mexican Vienna lagers, and especially here in Texas, they're very popular.
Yeah.
So huge home brewing tradition as well. So I get excited about that. It's very important to me to be part of that tradition and contribute a little bit
And share it
and
and
share it and
help
promote
secure
it,
it and
showcase it.
yeah,
Yeah,
lock it down
yeah,
and hey, this is, excuse me, this historical style or
yeah.
whatever.
And a lot of home brewers don't speak English, so they have a lot of material out there.
Yeah.
They have an insane amount of knowledge that it's important, but it cannot be shared outside Latin America. So I like to think that I can bridge those two worlds,
Sure.
and make people aware of these traditions and the home brewing communities
Sure.
that don't get promoted as much.
Get the recognition
And they
that,
get the
they
recognition
deserve.
and
I
the
mean,
recognition and the contributions. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
You.
I think you do a really well job of being able to kind of, like you said, bridge that gap and say, hey, look at this. This is something like you've never tasted before.
Yeah.
We get so caught up sometimes in just like the normal styles that the BJCP like promotes, and maybe even those regional things that are going on in your state or your area, that we don't think of things like Latin America, Venezuela, etc., all that having a brewing community, and
Absolutely.
so it's funny though, like the more like I guess like historical side of things that you start to get on, the more that you start seeing like Ethiopia has a beer
Absolutely. Yeah.
and etc., etc. It's just phenomenal that the world of beer is so much bigger than you almost are like can believe, like everybody's got something to contribute to it.
Absolutely. No, it's very exciting. Are you ready for the next beer?
I sure am.
So this is something I wouldn't brew. As you know, I'm not a big fan of sours.
Yes.
However, I'm a big fan of this sour.
Okay.
So this is from Brazil now. We're in Brazil. I could not get specifically Catarina sour. That's the name of the beer.
Okay.
And that comes from a state in Brazil, which is in the south. It's called Santa Catarina. And there's a big German influence in the area.
Sure.
So of course, Berliner Weissen, they've been brewing that forever. Brazil is very rich on tropical fruit. And so it was just a matter of time in which somebody say, hey, wait a minute, we're making Berliner Weissens, we have all this fruit. It makes sense to put them together. Now, this one is not advertised as a Catarina sour, but it's Catarina sour adjacent. This is made by a company called Clown Shoes in Massachusetts. This is Fruitorian. And the characteristic of the Catarina sour, which you can also find in the BJCP guidelines now,
Yep.
in the I think it's X4 or one of those, is basically a Berliner Weissen, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, which is brewed with tropical fruit. So this one will have, the ABV tends to be a little bit higher
Right.
than your standard Berliner Weissen because the addition of fruit and secondary, and but it has the same level of bitterness, low bitterness, very refreshing, very high. So let's open this one and let's take a sip. Let's take a taste of Clown Shoes Fruitorian, and this one will have guava and passion fruit. You know. So it's funny, is that color-wise, it looks about the same as the Dorada Pampeana. So, cheers.
Cheers. Smells amazing.
Oh, isn't it?
I can definitely smell like that
Yeah.
that sourness, like the lacto. The smell reminds me so much of like a Berliner Weiss.
It's a Berliner Weiss, and now you get hit by this explosion of fruit. With
Yeah.
the guava, passion fruit dominates in this particular version.
Well, even just one done right, it's already got some of those notes
Yep.
already without the addition of the fruit.
No, it is incredible. What I found also interesting in the U.S., the Shoots, which is a legendary craft brewer from Oregon. They do a Catarina sour in the summertime. This year I missed it. So they only issued in July and August.
Right.
But this is close enough. I'm not sure if they intended to make a Catarina sour, but when I tried it, I said, this is a Catarina. If somebody tells me it is, it is. So I never brew one.
You've been pushing me to do one.
I've been pushing you to do one. I think one of the differences also, if you read the BJCP guidelines, is that traditional Berliner Weissens could have a bread characteristic. The Catarina sour is completely 100% kettle sour. And also it must have tropical fruit. So, your mangoes, your guava, your passion fruit, pineapple.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, so on this one right here, I taste very little malt profile at all, like almost next to nothing. It's all about that fruit in that sourness, not and maybe just a touch of bitterness. I would almost say that that's pineapple that I'm picking up.
Yep.
On it for sure.
Yeah, knowing that it has passion fruit, that's one of my favorite fruits, especially when I was growing up. So I immediately tasted. My wife is a big fan of guavas, and I can get that hint of guava.
Yeah.
And the passion fruit, and it's not, this version at least doesn't feel that sour.
No.
The sour is really subdued. The fruit takes cover. It's insanely well executed. So Clown Shoes from Massachusetts. The first time I tried their beer, but it is really, really good.
Yeah, no, I would definitely drink more than one of those.
So the Catarina sour, when I started doing some research, I couldn't find if it was 100% home brewer uh, um, developed. To me, based on what I have read, it might have been just a mixture. Craft brewing in Brazil is very well established. The home brewing in Brazil is very well established, especially since the 90s. They're very passionate about it. So I wouldn't be surprised it was home brewers turning to craft brewers,
And
or
then
home brewers and craft brewers
coming together.
coming together. And I have asked some of my friends in Brazil. I haven't, like a lot of the things, sometimes it doesn't get recorded.
Sure.
So it's what people remember. But this is a very well established style. If you are into sours, I strongly
If you're into sour things but you don't like beer, I think that this is a good one.
it is a good one. But if you really like making sour beers, you
Yes.
should make. I strongly recommend that you try
I
this
think
style.
I need to dig into it.
I think
I
you will
think
dig it.
I think I could do some things with it.
And you can make a Texas version with probably, pickle pear.
Yeah,
So
I've got like 25 pounds of it still left in my freezer.
so you could make your own Catarina sour Texas style.
I probably could.
You probably, yeah, and I think it will be good.
Um, I think I'd have to pair it with something else though. Um, prickly pear kind of gets a little.
So we did it. He's already thinking about it. So
Yeah.
we'll wait,
We'll
wait,
we'll talk
wait-
about this.
wait
Let's
for
not
the-
let's
wait-
not get distracted.
wait for the Jaggers Brewing Co. Catarina sour coming to you soon in this channel and other Jaggers Brewing Co. channels.
Other shenanigans.
This is really good. I mean, it's funny because I keep saying I'm not into sours, but I like your Berliner Weissen. I like this, so maybe I am into sours. I just deny.
You got to find the right sour, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, you said you don't like the funk, like the Brett and the PDO and
The funkiness really puts me off. But on the other hand, I love lambics, like Creek, like Belgium Creek. I love that beer, So, which is technically a sour,
sure.
and while it's spontaneous fermentation. So I'm a contradiction when it comes to sours.
Well, it's definitely a good beer. It's worth
Mhm.
worth giving a shot. Like I said, so I didn't pick up really any on the malt profile. I don't think the bitterness that I'm tasting, I feel like, comes from the hops. I think it's kind of like it's almost a mixture of the sourness and the fruit kind of blending in, but of course the sour or kettle sour or whatever the case may be, you're not going to hop heavily anyways.
Correct.
Like I use Magnum with mine, and like it's like 3 pellets.
It's like
you
a
know,
touch.
like
It's like
yeah,
a touch.
yeah, just enough, like 5 IBUs.
Yeah.
So that's going to be hard to pick up anyways, right?
Yeah, correct.
Uh,
I know some people that basically they just throw a pellet just so they can
Say they did
technically
it.
call it a beer.
right.
But it's a lot of these sours. Really, a lot of the bitterness sometimes comes from the fruit itself, from the
Yeah.
lactose. So it's very interesting. When you think about the influence of German brewing traditions in a country like Brazil, now mixing with local fruits
Yeah.
and local traditions, then this is what you get. So pretty cool stuff in my opinion.
Come get you some. You won't be on camera, I promise you.
Yeah, you gotta try this, and you gotta try Dorada. We're gonna put it back on the ice, so it stays cold for our friend Dan here, who's helping us today behind the camera.
So, what do we got coming up next?
Well, now we're gonna increase the ABV here.
I like this whole guided thing where I don't have to figure out what's coming first.
And I'm playing sommelier today, so
Yeah.
that's fine. And that's kind of exciting because I think that that's always I wanted to do that.
I got a couple friends, so we put together a beer advent calendar every year, and so I sort the beers
That's
and,
nice.
and all that. So this is I like sitting back and having this done for me.
This is cool. So now we're gonna stay in Brazil for now, and
Okay.
you help us brew this beer back in February.
Yes.
And so I'm very excited for you to try it, to see what happened after all these months. So this is the very famous Brazilian nut old ale or brown ale. The story behind this is again from Randy Mosher's book. He has a recipe similar to this, but he mentions the home brewer that came up with it. His name is Ricardo Rosa, and he legendary home brewer in Brazil. He's been brewing forever, and he also had one of the very first brewing blogs in Portuguese in the mid 2000s to basically fulfill a need to communicate and to exchange information with other homebrewers. And Ricardo is also a mathematician. He got his PhD in mathematics, I believe, in the University of Indiana. Went back to Brazil, and he's a math professor in the University of Rio de Janeiro. So a very accomplishment person too, on the field of mathematics. Um, so I contacted Ricardo after I read all about this. I basically went to the university website, got his email, sent him an email, and he was incredibly gracious to send me his original recipe from 2004. What he's trying to accomplish here, he wanted to brew a brown ale, uh, high ABV ale. Technically qualifies as an all ale, but he wanted to showcase Brazilian nuts. And his original idea, I think he made 60 liters. That's equivalent to like 15 gallons. And he split the batch. One batch went through the normal process, the other batch went into a barrel, and he barrel aged it. So I don't have that ability to do here in my system. So
You could
this
cheat
will be,
that a little
we can
bit.
cheat that, and I wanted to use the other
Sure.
version. High ABV, the thing is 9.8% alcohol. It uses a lot. The Brazilian nuts actually go in the mash. So we mash,
Yeah.
and I remember when we were doing that, we could smell the Brazilian nuts all over the patio. Original plan was to let it age. I bulk age it in secondary. The original plan was to age it all the way to September, but we have a mishap in the house. We forced me to stop that process in July, so it's been bottling condition. I put it on a keg, and I left it in the keg alone until a few weeks ago when I started bottling it. So tell me what you think.
So on the nose, you can definitely pick up a little bit of the nuttiness. It's like
Absolutely.
still, it's pretty dominating as a matter of fact on the nose.
I thought, to be honest with you, that the nuts we could smell it during the mash, but I was skeptical that it will come out in the
Yeah.
beer.
Yeah, you were amazed every time. Like,
That every time I tasted it, when I transferred to secondary, I could smell it. When I transferred to the keg, I could smell it. It's like I'm really blown away by this. And I told Ricardo, I met Ricardo, like, man, I can smell these Brazilian nuts every time I move this beer.
so, but on the nose, like,
Very malty too.
yeah,
It has the sweetness.
that's what I was fixing to say. It's you can smell the malt. I want to say crystal clean because your crystal malts,
It does
right?
have crystal malt. It has crystal
Yeah.
80, crystal 120 in the recipe. And by the way, this is a recipe Ricardo gave us, the very original, the one that he came up with in 2004. This beer was actually produced commercially. Um, at some point, there was a small batch of this beer produced commercially in Brazil for a while. And I'm pretty sure they simplified the recipe because there was a lot of different malts goes into this beer. Um, it only has bittering hops, Galena hops for bittering. It's a really nice warming beer. I can't wait to put the fire pit and use this to sip it. But I can tell you, I have this beer with a little bit of food, something strong
Yeah.
like a barbecue,
I was gonna
and it
say what
matches
this
really. It
this
pairs
was with
really
some
well.
ribs.
It pairs insanely well with tacos al pastor too. Is really is really nice.
It's funny how like because we were talking about food and stuff before we started filming, how like I have this natural gravitation towards ribs and you for your tacos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, but like when you're talking about, oh, this beer would be good. I pour that on my ribs. Oh, I would season that with my tacos. Or, you
Absolutely.
know, but,
Well, that's the Texas way of doing things. At
right?
the end of the day, you know.
Yeah. On the mouthfeel, it's got a it on the mouthfeel it kind of almost presents thin to me,
Hmm.
right? But on the taste side, like we have a complex there of you get the nutty roastiness like kind of up front, and then it moves a little bit into some malt background, and then like I swear I get like coffee on the end.
Yes, absolutely. There's like a roasty note, and I another thing that I found interesting is like I get a little bit of toffee, like this caramel toffee notes. They are subdued, but you know when you start thinking about a lot of these candy bars that have
Sure.
nuts on it, that's what reminds me a lot of that. And it has some sweetness, but it's not clogging. Is I think I would have expected a little bit more mouthfeel, but for some reason it works.
I think
Yeah,
if you throw in a little bit of adjunct into this,
probably.
like maybe some oats or something like that, kind of bump up the mouthfeel of it. I think that this would be like really perfect to
Hmm.
sit by the fire, kids in bed, it's
Yeah,
dark outside, and just kind of
yeah.
and so like I know this isn't like stout territory, right? This is kind of different. You said it's like brown ale trying to
It's
head
an
towards
old ale. Yeah,
old ale.
yeah.
I've never had an old ale knowingly,
All right.
so old ale is kind of just one you're bulk aging, right?
Correct. The bulk aging is vital. Yeah.
And then what other characteristics are we looking into for an old ale?
So we were really hard to keep the carbonation low. I
Okay.
think that was very important. Um, I think a lot of myself included. Sometimes we just go and get the keg, plug the CO2 on it for a few days, and
30 psi
30
2
psi, and
days,
then we got
purge it, and then put
we
it
gotta
next to that.
work, and then we just
Yeah.
start pouring, and then I don't pay 100% attention to the levels of carbonation. And
No.
to me, they tell me this style is 2.3 volume, this
Yeah.
2.6. I go like, close enough. Um, Obviously, there are styles that are favored for high carbonation, like for example, anything like Berliner Weissen family, like the Katharina Sour.
Right.
Um, but usually, this type of beers, the characteristic low carbonation is important. So I did pay a lot of attention to that when we were carbonating. So you can see that I think we did a good job maintaining the carbonation low.
As you can see, there's not a whole lot of
Yeah.
carbonation going on there.
And it helps, in my opinion, it helps with the experience of tasting the malt and taste and the nuttiness. Like
If
it is really. I'm still surprised every time I open a bottle
I'm
how all the nuts come out immediately. The
Yeah,
very first thing you smell.
I'm not of course super familiar with the old ale aspect, and I've only had a few barley wines.
Correct.
Never brewed either one of them or anything like that. So to me, this is kind of heading towards more of that barley wine
Absolutely.
side of things.
Absolutely.
I
So yeah, we made a barley wine every year, and yeah, barley wine. At least the last version I made, um, I bottle conditioned those. So I have full control on the carbonation because that's sort of that you need to keep the carbonation low. This one, because of the volumes we were handling, I rather did it in the keg. But we proved that we can control it pretty well.
You just got to
Yeah.
pay attention and be
Pay-
very very attentive
You
to
gotta get to
orders.
your tables and get the pressure right, and
Yeah,
be extremely patient, not try to rush it. And
and clean.
it was just like, I know, which is like completely opposite to my nature. So I've learned a lot working with this beer, and I communicated with Ricardo, showing some photos, and he was very pleased with the results. So
As it warms
you
up,
know,
I'm picking up a little bit more on those toffee, like almost caramel
and that's a good point.
taste.
This is a beer that we should be drinking around 50 degrees. We just have it in the bucket for
Yeah,
convenience, but yeah, these are beers that are not designed to be drank cold.
or
They're
quickly.
quickly, they're more fresh. 45 to 50 degrees is probably the sweet
Sure.
spot. So if you let it warm up a little bit,
And it gets a little
yeah,
bit more coffeeier on the end
yeah,
too.
and you start getting, as soon as start warming up, the nuttiness continuously dominates more and more and more. But now you start picking at that toffee,
Yeah.
that sweet toffee type of, very malty, the maltiness, the sweetness. It was a quite an experience, and I got to get you guys to come over and brew it with me.
Yeah,
So that was
that's
so much
such a
fun.
wonderful experience, and
Yeah.
it's definitely planted some ideas in my head long term that I want to play around with. I'm still kind of working through some stuff in my head,
Yeah.
which is a dangerous place sometimes. But
And I save a few for, I think this will go really nice in Thanksgiving. I think it will be
yeah,
a nice brew to have during Thanksgiving. If we get a colder Thanksgiving, it will be quite nice.
yeah, no, I think I might have one. You're sending me home with a few. I think I might have one at the end of the month, and then I think I'm not gonna touch it again until Thanksgiving or after.
Yeah, and Christmas too will be a good
Oh
time.
yeah.
We drink our barley wines usually. We usually brew them in March to be drunk in Christmas time. So this is about we brew this in
So
February,
so
so
it's kind of like a Marzen, but not.
probably which I'm still yet to do a Marzen, but maybe one day. Just lagering just takes too long, man.
Well, so Venture can come over and do a Marzen at my place, and
That'd be awesome.
I will lager it.
There you go. Now we're talking about. I mean, how come we didn't come up with this plan before?
You know, I'm not responsible for all these ideas, okay?
The problem is you're too busy, man.
This is awesome. Thank you for having the experience of having me over for that brew day. That's it, what just the whole thing's been awesome. Um, yeah, I think
Very
I
excited. I mean,
I of course my deal would be to take it up to the next level, and throw some of that.
So once, if you get yourself your hands on a barrel, then that will be our opportunity to do it again.
It's so like barrel is it's always just one click away, and I keep going back and forth if I want to do it because I know if I do it, I'm gonna go crazy, and then I gotta work it out, right? So I gotta
And that
say
probably wouldn't help either because I
so
will make it even crazier.
so I got these 5 beers that I got to do, and then we're gonna sour it. We're throwing bugs in it.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're already getting out of control here.
Yeah. No, it's that it's right there. It's always fixing to happen. I'm always ready to just about do it, and I keep saying I don't have the room. And then if I did it, if I somehow come up with the room to do it,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna become even more of the busiest
Yeah,
home brewer in Texas.
I did get the oat chips, and at some point I thought about it to put it
Yeah.
in a second, but I decided not to this
No,
time. So maybe next time, maybe for next year, because
I would split batch it.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't do a whole batch that way
Right.
because I feel like if it goes wrong, then
The whole thing is ruined.
you've
Yeah.
lost a lot of work, right?
Yeah.
But I will say, man,
I did tell Ricardo that we're brewing this next year.
yes,
So because I liked it so much, I think it can turn into a tradition of brewing the Brazilian Nut Old Ale in February is to be drank, when the weather turns. So that's pretty nice.
to me, I if I already didn't have the traditions to do it, this would be a New Year's brew day for me.
Correct.
So I don't really drink on New Year's Eve. because New Year's Day I'm brewing 2 beers.
Exactly.
So I could see myself, if I didn't already have that tradition inside, to
Correct.
be brewing this on New Year's Day,
Yeah.
for
So
that long extended deal and all that.
yeah, no, this I'm telling you. So and we've been talking about this beer and the experience for several minutes now, and this is what I think when you go back to your first question. This is what got me excited about. This is
Yes.
something that it was invented by a home brewer in Brazil in the mid 2000s, in the early 2000s. I'm sorry. It's been 20 years. The recipe from 2004. When he sent it to me, it says 2004. So here we are, almost 20 years later, still enjoying,
Ex-
bringing people
Yeah.
together, having this experience. Now we're coming up with new ideas 20 years after a home brewer in Brazil came up with this. So this is the sometimes we know social media, the internet has very negative things, but if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be doing this. So um, and there's so much to discover, so much to discover still. There's so many other brewers to discover, so many
Ideas to
potential
exchange.
ideas. I would love to, there's a we've had the opportunity to have a lot of very amazing craft beer in Mexico, but I would love to then go deeper and a lot of the home brewing traditions are very influenced by the U.S., obviously. So they love their IPAs, they love their,
Sure.
the
Loggers and
lagers,
pilsners.
and absolutely. But I know there's a lot of people trying to rescue or implement some of the local traditions,
Yeah. Regional
locally,
specialties.
and searching for those could be quite cool. So if you're
Yes.
watching this and you know something, or you can guide us or guide me to that, that will be great. So
Pull
we're
both of us in it. I
so
think we're both kind of nuts about it.
that'll be awesome. Yeah,
I found some key hits to a lost historical American beer
absolutely.
that we're in the process. I showed you the recipe. We talked about it a little bit. I'm not ready to really put it out there yet, but it's gonna happen. I'm freaking excited. We have about 2 or 3 different versions of a recipe, what we feel like would be represented. So I think we got to brew them all, and then get a panel together of people, homebrewers and
That'll be
stuff,
nice.
and say, what do you think? Here's what we found. Did we hit it? Did we miss it? Are we misinterpreting something?
Correct.
And so
Yeah, and I think for our next probably Latin American inspired beers is I seldom do lagers, but I love Vienna lagers. And so you have the Mexican version of the Vienna lager with adjuncts such as corn.
yeah,
So I would love to brew that. I would love to, learn some of the, of these traditions. You have the Nuevo Latino type of influence to implement, to try to bring some of the ingredients into the brewers. Some of them can get a little bit outside what I would usually like, but but I don't know. Like the Catarina Sour, I might end up liking it, even though I'm supposed not to like it.
right.
So
Allegedly.
allegedly, so the jury's still out on that. So yeah, no, it's very exciting. So looking forward to continue brewing and continue showcasing these beers
Sure.
and sharing with everyone.
Yeah. Man, I'm excited for everything that
Yeah,
you've got planned.
yeah,
And I'd like to see revisit some of these things as I going to start brewing some of this stuff
absolutely.
and sharing them back and forth with you. You've definitely got me hooked on a couple ideas and styles and stuff.
Yeah, well, so mission accomplished there.
Right. Well, it doesn't hurt that we talk almost every day.
That doesn't hurt either.
You're a bad influence on me.
Oh well, there you go. Well, I wouldn't be the first person to say it.
Right.
But
So,
welcome to the club.
yeah, welcome to the addiction.
Yeah, there you go.
So, what else do we have next?
Well, no, I think we had covered all the beers I have for you,
Okay.
but I did bring you this is now turned into a historical beer now.
Oh, yes.
This is not Latin American home brewing, but that's probably the last stash that I was able to rescue. So I know you've been researching I'm brewing a lot of steam beer and try to nail that style. So
Yeah.
I brought you, I saved you a few of these, so you continue your quest because this is a beer worth saving. Um, as passionate as I am from Latin American homebrewing traditions and brewing traditions, I'm also really passionate about, our traditions here in my adopted country. So, steam beer, of course, and a true American style.
Sure.
Same with the Kentucky Common,
Yeah.
true American style. Um,
We only
yeah,
have three historic beer categories that belong here.
that
Everything
belong
else is
here, but
yeah.
I could make the argument that there's other stuff out there that we haven't. Like for example, Catarina Sour. Is it similar to what people call a Florida Vice?
Yeah.
Something that you could investigate. We know. I know in Albany, New York, they have something similar in terms of an Albany Ale. I've heard about it.
Yeah.
If
We
you
talked about that.
if you look into Texas, we have been brewing Kolsch for a whole for
A long time.
forever, for a long time. So at this point, can the Kolsch Texas style be its own style? I don't know. Something to explore.
I think it
You
has.
know,
I think so. I think the
yeah,
stipulations is it has
yeah.
to have more than a slight difference, right?
Correct.
You
But
know,
at the
like
same time, it's not necessarily from the technical perspective, but it's the
no,
cultural perspective, right?
sure,
Pecan stouts, pecan porters, like the one that 512 makes in Austin. I could make the argument that even though pecan or nut based porters have existed forever, that's a very Texan thing to drink, especially with ribs, especially with tacos, with quesadillas.
during
so,
Thanksgiving
so
when we
in
have our
Thanksgiving,
briskets on the pit,
and I keep 512 pecan porters in my fridge at all times,
sure,
because from time to time I'm eating something that's very typical from Tex-Mex traditions, and I feel like that's the beer that goes with that. So I'm very excited about all that. I get the cultural aspects, the food pairings with the beer is something that I'm obsessed about. Um, so the journey is just starting,
yeah,
right? So
yeah,
we
yeah.
get
You're fixing to start malting your own, and then
no, I'll let Nico do that, man. Every time I see his videos when he's malting things, I'm going like, I'm so glad I can
have
just
you ever malted?
no.
I have.
You
Of course I have.
every time I see that, I'm so glad I can drive to our friends in Sita or order somewhere because it's like I'm not interested on doing any of that stuff.
Right.
I think if I had started this hobby much younger like you, I probably will have come up with some other distractions. But right now, I just want to buy my malts, buy
Sure.
my hops, and then go and brew my thing.
No, I agree. It definitely
Nothing
it makes it
outside that.
it makes it handy. It's just I had to know what
You
happens,
had
you
to,
know?
yeah, I know. I think I'll watch the YouTube video of you doing it, and that'll be enough for me.
Right. Well,
Thank you
Ramon,
so much, man. This was a lot of fun.
thank you for having me over at Casa Ramon. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for coming and checking it out. So this will be my first time having Anchor Brewing and a commercial California Common. I think we're gonna take this off camera
Absolutely.
to drink and hang out for the rest of the afternoon. But if you haven't done it, please go check out Ramon's channel, Venture Brewing. Again, the link will be in the description, along with all the other resources that we talked about. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. Make sure that you like, share, follow all our channels. Both
Yeah.
of mine is you're on Instagram as well.
Yeah, we mostly on Instagram as Adventure Homebrewing,
Yep.
and I'll give you all the links to the guys in Argentina,
Sure.
Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, so you can, a lot of their content is in Spanish, but I can tell you, you watch that and you will understand exactly what they're doing, especially Nico. Nico's channel is just totally insane. I mean, this man makes his own equipment. He molds like 100 pounds of grain. Is completely ridiculous. He grows his own hops, of course, and so it is amazing to see and all the styles of beers that he makes, and it's really it's a treasure that we can have that representing Latin American homebrewing out there. So
Sure.
fabulous. Thank you so much for having me, man. What a privilege.
Well, I'm going to tell you the pleasure is all on this side.
Mm.
But we'll catch you guys next time. Cheers.
Cheers.